Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3Q New Mexico's Business Podcast. I am your host, Pam Myers, and my wonderful co-host is the fabulous Erica Yoakum. Our guest today is John Groth. John is the founder of Southwest Composites. The company was founded in 1994, and John has a passion for manufacturing quality products and innovative solutions. So thanks for joining us today, John.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so what kind of things? I was reading kind of through your site and so there were some interesting things on there. So what's your biggest thing what's your, not biggest like big, but what do you do the best?
Most popular product, maybe?
There you go.
The most best?
The most best.
The most best. We do a lot of CNC machining. So that starts out with some engineering, which we do, and I enjoy. I still do much of the conceptual engineering here. And then over the last few years, it's been recreational products. So we do a lot in the carbon fiber backpack market, which has been a big thing for us. We also do a lot in the carbon fiber bicycle industry. We make the molds and tools for some U.S. manufacturers. That's very exciting. We get involved in some other recreational products with canoe paddles and things that we're involved in, a little bit in the pickle paddle market and pickleball paddle. And then we do a lot of stuff that's not nearly as interesting for our national labs here in town.
So I'm asking because I'm from Northern California, and we had a company in Santa Rosa that they were doing the plastics for Star Wars. So they made like the first stormtrooper plastic thing, the whole thing, and the guy was in Santa Rosa, and it was hysterical because when the movie came out, everyone was like and then it blew up, right? And so he's running around with stormtrooper gear that it was like that's what put them on the map, was stormtrooper gear. So because we're doing movies and stuff like that in New Mexico, do you guys get to do any fun stuff like in the movies or
from time to time, actually, we did a project for Breaking Bad.
Of course.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And they had they did one of the filmings was in the Four Corners. Oh. And they had, apparently there's a rock you sit on that has a plaque on it. Oh. And they made the rock, and they actually had us recreate the bronze plaque, in which they kept as a memento, but they created that in the studio here in town, and we recreated the bronze plaque
that's hilarious.
is at the Four Corners.
Fun. How fun. Now, before we went live, you said something about, so the company's been around since 1994, and then you rebranded in 2014 to put composite in. So you've been doing this a very long time. Like, how does one get into your business? I mean, you're like, hey, I want to make that, and then it turns into, let me make it for you, and then go from there.
By accident. For 30 years, did anyone really start out when they were a young person and be like, I'm going to create a dynasty? And I mean, maybe Musk and others had that vision, but no. Back in 1994, I started. My business kind of started. I am I'm a journeyman tool maker. I served my apprenticeship in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I graduated from high school, and I started in the apprenticeship program about 4 months later, and in a big factory with 200 adult men, and I probably grew up a little faster. Maybe soured on adult life a little quicker than I should have. Served my apprenticeship program, great experience, 10,000 hours of training. It was just fantastic. lived in Minneapolis for a few years. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife of 30 years, we decided to move out west. She got a job at Presbyterian Hospital in the pediatric intensive care, where she has worked for 31 years, first and only job.
Wow.
So I was hanging out and I had some foundry experience, and I ended up working in just a small foundry out in Moriarty, New Mexico for a few years, and one thing led to another, and here I am.
Wow.
That's my story.
Nobody does that anymore. Like because I've got college age kids, and I'm like, nobody has one job for their whole life anymore. Nobody does that anymore. And then here y'all proving me wrong.
I've done the same thing for 42 years.
Wow.
Wow.
So you must like it. Either that or you're just like a real glutton for punishment. But
I do. I enjoy. At heart, I'm a maker. I'm a maker.
Wow.
I like making things. I like putting my hands on things. The business entity, I enjoy the challenge, but it's not my core competency, and I've done my best to surround myself with people who can do that better than me.
Yeah. Amen.
How many employees do you have, John?
There is 15 of us.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
We in part of the rebranding, we just moved into a new building, new facility, right at the beginning of COVID. And the people wanted to get rid of it, and at that time, the bank was giving away money, and it was a good time to do it. And then we were locked down for a few months, and we had some time and energy to really refurbish the place. It was abandoned for 10 years before we bought it.
Wow. Oh, wow.
It needed some love.
And that's where you are. That's where you are now. So you are in your
currently. Yeah. Kind of in the Eubank Central area.
Okay.
Oh, I wasn't even close. Pam. I was saying, I think that's over by the I-25 and yeah, I'm way off. Okay. So Eubank. Okay. Other side of town.
The general streets, General Chenal, General are all kind of down off of between Eubank and Wyoming.
Right. Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And how is it? So during COVID then, because Erica usually asks this question. So how, you got through it by revamping your space. So then when everything lifted, you were all ready, set, go.
We're a project-based company. Mm-hmm. So kind of when COVID started to come in, we still had a lot of projects.
Okay.
Like ongoing contracts, ongoing projects. So like we thought like, this is great. Like we're cruising right through. We're working with the government labs who have got programs in process. Unfortunately, I think the reality came about 2 years later, like really just at the end of last year, we're like, so all those projects that Sandia works on that take years to develop and evolve into finally making something.
The gap has finally caught up to you.
Yeah, they were working on those for 2 years.
Right.
I'm not sure that that's factual, but many of the stuff we work on is project-based manufacturing. And
anything governmental is 5 years. It takes forever. Right. It's like a very slow moving machine. Yes.
Sure. If we can we postpone the election for another 5?
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you work for individuals as well, right? For the general public as well as the labs and.
Yes. Yeah, we do a fair bit with, like even today, I'm working with some entrepreneurs. I've got one gentleman who's making basically a carbon fiber pogo stick. Pretty cool.
That sounds fun.
Kind of his invention, and he's been working on it for a while. And then I've been working with him for quite some time. And then I had a gentleman from back in Wisconsin that needed a prosthetic for a hockey stick that, to hold on his, he's missing a lower extremity on his arm. So, we do that. And then certainly a lot of even this backpack companies we work with are, we would say they're kind of, boutique, boutique companies. They're selling 10, 20,000 a year, where, these higher end, kind of a North Face brand that we all recognize is, they move those kind of products in a couple of weeks,
So what's your favorite project that you've worked on ever? Like you talk, even today you go, wow, I can't believe we got to work on that.
It would still have to be when we worked in the foundry industry. The foundry, the tooling that takes to make a motor block or a gearbox or some milling and mining equipment, it's always cast because it's geometry. There's a lot of geometry, there's shape and pieces, and ultimately, I'm a master of shape. Mm-hmm. Shape is my thing. We always joke like anyone can make rounds and squares, but we make shape. And we built this we got aligned with some foundries in Los Angeles. We made gearboxes. Doesn't sound very exciting, but they can get extremely complicated. And I worked on one gearbox when I worked in the pattern shop in Minneapolis, and it was what drives the rotor system on top of a helicopter. It articulates the blades and spins. It took about 10 guys, like 2.5 years to make the one tool. The numbers were about 15,000 man hours.
Wow.
To make the job. So that's 7 guys for 1 year to work on the job. 120 different molds and parts and pieces that all basically made a component that you can pick up by hand. I mean, it's that big, but still takes.
But the intricacies,
the intricacies are more complicated the more I get into it,
Wow. Yeah, because there's talk about your geometry. You got to get but that's like wow. And then there's no real room for error because there are people flying underneath that thing. So
it is tested and retested and pressurized and qualified and quantified. None of that's happening. As long as all the bolts are tight, you're in good shape.
So on an average project, like say I have an idea for a carbon fiber pogo stick, and I come to you saying, John, I need your help. I want this designed. What's the timeline on something like that from start to finish?
Well, in our world and in the manufacturing world, and this, like 3D printing has made this even more apparent that, the 3D printing lives on what's called a CAD file, a computer aided design.
Right.
You don't build anything anymore without a computer aided design. If you're going to make some 3D printed glass frames, you need that file, and that goes into the 3D printer. Our system isn't much different. We need that file to run our computer systems. So you come to me with an idea, an innovation, the napkin sketch, so to speak. And then at that time, I can create the CAD file. I go into, we have SolidWorks, which is kind of standard of the industry for this design work that we do. And then I would work with you if you have a little further along the line. Maybe we can do some 3D scanning of it. And then once we have that object, which is called a parametric model, on which we can weigh and twist and quantify. You say we want it in aluminum, we want it in carbon fiber. Those can be tested and analyzed. And then at that point, we would then, do some baseline engineering. And this is the stuff that excites me, right? It's kind of the front end of the innovation of making, either make for or making a part that's moving from a legacy material, maybe wood or a spring and a pogo stick application. How many kids have got their fingers pinched in the pogo stick spring, got their pant leg caught in there, right? Like, it's a cool idea. So that's how it starts. It starts with the design. It starts with us getting a little back and forth, some feedback of what you're doing. And, when all the entrepreneurs and inventors come to me, and we work with, dozens over the years, and usually the conversation ends, it's like, Pam, you would like to make a carbon fiber pogo stick. I think that's a pretty cool idea. And I tell you what, you go and you do some research, and when you can tell me how many you can sell and how much you're going to sell them for, and you come on back and I'll talk about taking your money.
Okay.
Because I felt like a pit in my stomach a few times when I'm like, sure, we'll do the prototyping. And then, like, they give me the check. I'm like, what are you going to do now? It's like, I don't know. I've got the coolest $10,000 pogo stick you'll ever see, but I have no idea who I'm going to sell them to or how much I'm ever going to sell them for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That with audiobooks.
It consumes a lot of time.
Now what? Yeah. It's the now what that's the tough.
You should know the now what before I'm happy to give you the manufacturing advice, but I can certainly give you ballpark figures. But if you're like, hey, I can sell it for $400, and then we're going to sell it for 400. We need to manufacture that for some factor of that. And then, all right, if I got $100 to make it, now we got a number to work with.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that makes sense.
It's so cool. So I've got a kid. I've got a kid in the architecture program, and so he's working in like Rhino, and he's creating these things, and he's getting into CAD programs and all that kind of stuff. And I also have 4 3D printers, 1 resin and 3 filament in my garage. My husband's totally into that. So I'm very familiar with all of those files, and it's very fiddly. It's very fiddly.
Yes, they are not just plug and play like everyone would hope.
Everyone thinks it's like, oh, just take this and then make that. And it's like, yeah, but it's like 3-dimensional. That's different than just drawing something. You got to you got to be able to, pick it up and move it around, and it's very fiddly. So, and wanting to do that for 40 plus years, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
My brains would be leaking out of my
things have changed. We first kind of encountered I've been in it long enough that, like, first thing kind of came when, like, CNC's computer things came in, right? This was kind of a change in our dynamic of tradesmen, right? Yeah. When I was in the trades in Milwaukee, everything was built by hand, right? And then the computers kind of came in, and that changed the dynamic a little bit, the skill set a little bit. And then globalization kind of happened. Like, oh my God, we're a free market all over the world. And, people work for a lot less than we do all over the world. And that's the way it is. And strangely enough, like, we're in another, like, AI pinch.
Right. Yep.
It is affecting our business and how we build relationships and lack of relationships, and everyone just goes on there and instant quoting and instant making and platforms that you can get 3D printing. You can go on there right now, and 7:00 in the morning, a UPS guy is going to show up with that part in a box for you. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
But then it comes down to quality, because so we do this, like, we do audiobooks, right? And there's AI voices out there that are doing audiobooks and things like that, but you can see and hear the quality difference. So I imagine you guys are kind of positioning yourself as the white glove, high level quality hands-on folk rather than it's getting spit out by some machine somewhere that's not really been thought through kind of thing. I know I'm right there with you. It's just it's positioning I don't want to say humans against the machine, because I say please and thank you to all my machines all the time. I'm very polite, because so when they take over, they recognize this face and this voice as a friend, right? That's my goal.
Good luck. Good luck there.
Right? Exactly. Right. That's yeah. But there's something to be said about having a smaller, more hands-on, like I said, higher quality, where people have actually thought through the whole thing rather than just pushed a button and hope for the best. Right?
It is, but unfortunately, oftentimes people got to give it a try and maybe see what that bad quality cost. Why does one cost this and the other cost twice as much? Why should I pay twice as much where I'm going to buy the one that's, I'm not twice as much, they're half as much, right? Why should I buy the one that's the standard price? I'll buy the one that's half price. And then I don't like it, I can always go. But in a lot of applications, it might be good enough. And I think it's also, I wouldn't be honest to say that there's excellent people and competitors globally that are just able to make the stuff a lot less expensive than we are. I spent some time about a year ago today. I went to Vietnam and Cambodia and spent some time through Cambodia. Interesting. That's a whole nother topic, but kind of to look at what was manufacturing in Vietnam, and as American manufacturers, we don't stand a chance. No way. They've got so many workers willing to work for really low wages, quality, skill, ethics, loyalty, everything that, kind of the original, our original competitor in China had, and these people are following there. And it's tough. You need a lot of pieces made, big volumes. You need to make this stuff offshore. They're set up for it. Wow. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, if I had to hire 50 people in 2024, if I had to fire 15 people in 2024, and that would be huge. It would be huge for us. And you went to AJ, you probably hire 50 people a day. Wow. Eternally. Yeah.
So would you say that's your biggest challenge, is the current market and how AI has affected it?
No, we pivoted out of that. We are in part of the reason why we switched into carbon composites is we saw the value of high performance, lightweight products, airplanes, automobiles, everything lighter. Anything that uses energy uses less energy when it's lighter. Yeah. No way around that, period. Right. So we saw an opportunity there. And then we also really started to feel what some people call the skills gap. And it was really seeing less young people. And I also have 2 daughters that recently graduated from college, and just not, they're skilled, they can do the work. They just don't see the value in like being in a trade. So as I was running a tool shop, I was just struggling year after year to find people who knew the trades, and really people who are interested in learning and seeing it, as things change, right? Globalization came, and all of a sudden, wow, now we're competing globally. That's tough on my paycheck. And now we're competing with AI, and it's tough on my paycheck. And so these things have come in. It's really not quite as stable, maybe as it once was. But the stability times have lasted for a decade in between, right. each one of those. So.
Yeah, right.
I guess it's the ability and the desire to want to overcome these things that keep you moving forward, right? I mean, it'd be easy enough, and lots of folks did when 2020 rolled around and things shut down. They were like, "Yep, that's it. That's my sign. I'm out."
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they did. We saw restaurants shut down and businesses close, and like down here in Los Lunas, Luna Mansion closed, and they just said, "Nah, you know what? It's just not even worth the effort to bring it back." Now it's on for sale. Anybody want to buy a Luna Mansion? $1.8 million. But people did. They walked away from businesses because it wasn't going to work. It's like that. Like I said, that was their sign. So wanting to overcome that, that's a big thing. And you used my favorite word, pivot. Pivot is the word that we heard over and over and over again in 2020. The folks that figured out what that pivot was and decided they wanted to pivot and find a way to make it work. That's what keeps the doors open. Yeah. Would you agree?
I had no plan B.
We're entrepreneurs. Who the hell has a plan B, dude?
Sink or swim. We're living or we're dying. That's all
about me, baby. If it ain't me, I'm dead. Yeah, exactly. There is no biz without me. So
we would say that let the trumpet never sound retreat.
Yeah.
Love it.
There you go. Yeah.
Love it.
Well,
awesome.
John, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Yeah, now I'm like, I gotta tell my kid about you because he'd be
have him come over. I'll give him a tour. We make some really cool stuff. Right?
And he's a great designer, and so I'm always like trying to hook him up with cool folks that he can go.
Come on in. I got a fairly youthful group here. We take boys into men and men into machinists, and so it's been great. Yeah, he's welcome anytime, and we can come over and show him how the machine shop operates, and we run a tight, lean manufacturing facility. So it's if cleanliness is next to godliness, there's hope.
That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to throw your website up here. So swcompositeworks.com. And I think it's brilliant. I love, it's always so interesting, the diversity of businesses that we have in Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know you existed until you showed up on the schedule to talk to today. So I'm really, really excited to spread the word and let people know.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking with you as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for listening.
Okay.
And we'll see you. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.